Hello, hello, hello out there in internet world. How's everybody doing here today? My name is Brian Brinkman. I'm part of Osiris Media, as you well know. Um, I just got back home from San Francisco night one. I'm back here in Denver, Colorado, and we were supposed to do a show yesterday morning, as you may have seen on the interwebs. I had a brief run in with TSA due to some excessive toothpaste in my bag, and so we weren't able to make our show yesterday morning to cover Sacramento. We did talk about that, however, when we were doing our live show from outside of the Chase Center, which we'll be releasing as a podcast on Tuesday. And then we were supposed to do it this morning, and I just between scheduling, getting to the airport, getting home, it just wasn't going to happen. So I figured when I got back here to Denver, I would do a brief recap of I've been thinking about it a lot, this show last night. I've been thinking about it since well, really since, like, it started because I was kinda blown away by it from the beginning. I'm just gonna kinda try to run through the show, what my thoughts were. It's interesting. I guess the best place to start is, like, I was thinking about it last night during I think it was 46 days that, fish is one of the only experiences that I feel like I have where it when it's so good and when you're in the moment and you're live and you're in the venue, it can just feel so all-encompassing, and you forget that you're gonna listen to this show again 6 months from now, 10 years from now, and that there's someone taking in the exact same show on their couch, having a completely different experience, both sonically and, emotionally and whatnot. And so it's hard sometimes. I'm a very analytical person. It's very hard sometimes to separate yourself from like, "Wow, this is a really good show," to like, "Wow, am I just having a really fun experience?" And I kinda at some point last night was just like, "No, I this is a really, really good show, and I'm having an amazing experience at the same time." And so, as I was listening through this show, as I was experiencing it, I was kind of just like I was filled with a ton of gratitude. I was filled with a ton of, yeah, gratitude's the right word. I was filled with just gratitude for, like, this experience that, I've allowed myself to have in life with fish. I was 16 years old when I got into the band, and when I got into them, they became my favorite band almost instantly. They opened my eyes up to so many different styles of music. They, provided me with a ton of emotional, understanding and, like, this, like, depth of knowledge about both music and life and this opportunity to develop really close friends and friendships, while also, like, every time you'd return to them and every time you discovered something new on just, like, a purely entertainment and kind of intellectual standpoint, like, you'd get something rewarding out of it, and it just happened constantly. It was amazing. And as many people who have probably been listening to Fish for 10, 20 years, maybe even just 2 to 5 years, who knows? You probably go through periods where you are like, "Have I just reached the bottom with this band? Have I reached the peak of, like, this is as much as I will ever get out of this band, and it's just gonna happen over and over again?" And every time I think that, something happens, like last night's show, where I'm like, "No, there is no bottom. There is no peak. There is no, like, moment where you're just done. It's just this constant give and take emotional experience, um, friendship with the band, but also, like, this constant, like, you had no idea that you would get a show like this. You had no idea that you would hear this kind of music." So I definitely walked out of last night feeling a way that I felt in only, like, a handful of shows. And I also feel kind of spoiled because the last show I had prior to this was the third night of Dick's, which was one of my favorite shows I've ever seen. It's with so many of my close friends and my favorite venue to see the band in, and they delivered a show that was as unexpected and as just like, you know, satisfying from a set list standpoint and from a jamming standpoint and so cohesive, and you can listen to it in one fluid piece, and it's the best. And I didn't really expect that last night. I kind of just went into the show thinking it's the second night of tour. It's the first night in this new venue. Who knows what we're going to get? I know I'm going to walk out being happy no matter what. And I walked out hearing another one of my favorite shows. And that's a rare experience to happen across tours. Um, Last thing before I just jump into the set list, the Chase Center is absolutely amazing. It's so gorgeous and designed for people walking and for um, buying food and drinks, and the sound is amazing inside, and the seats are big and cushiony and they're comfortable, and everything about it was incredible. I was I don't know how much, it was definitely not sold out, but it definitely had more people in it than I expected. I don't know how, like, affordable it will be for the band to play a show in that size venue that's probably that expensive, every time they come to San Francisco, but I'd highly recommend people make the trip there. The only downside to it is just, like, based on the location, you can't get a lift outside of it, so we ended up walking, like, 2.5, 3 miles back to our hotel, which was actually great to, like, kinda walk off the show, but, it's definitely not in, like, the easiest place to get to in San Francisco, or definitely not the easiest place to get away from, but, once you're in there and once you're in, like, the compound, it's amazing. There's great restaurants, great brewery. We're watching baseball, hanging out with people before the show, walked in, and it's just like this pristine place. So highly, highly recommend checking it out. There was definitely a thought that went through my head, especially when Kuroda's lights enveloped the entire room like they do at MSG, where I was like, would Fish ever consider doing a West Coast New Year's run? I don't think they would, but it would be an amazing venue to do it at. So so they came on, I want to say like 30, 33 minutes after ticket time, pretty standard stuff. The venue it took a long time for it to fill up. It was definitely not full when they walked on stage, but it would get to a point where, like, the floor seemed like there was enough space, but there were good amount of people there. The whole venue was pretty packed up. Aside from the boxes, the venue was pretty packed up. But they walk on. I was kind of curious what they were going to open with, and Possum to me was like this. It's such an easy, fun, Chugel peaking old Fish song that the band just can play in their sleep. And I kind of figured, like, okay, they probably had a great sound check where they, heard what the acoustics were like, and we're just like, let's just hear how this venue sounds in this moment. And Possum's just a great song to know, like, are they hooked up? Can they hear the crowd? Can the crowd hear it? Like, how's the sound? How's everything going? So super fun opener. I had really good seats in section 103, which was Mike's side, just about where, like, the 3-point line would be on the court. So kind of head on, but just to the side. And when they finished Possum, Trey looked at Mike, and Mike, I believe, called Haley's, and Trey just started laughing and just started nodding. I was like, "Oh, what are they going to play now?" Haley's, super fun, great, great second song to be played. At this point, it feels kind of like one of those, like, early 3.0 first sets. Just tons of energy, good old school Fish songs. But then, you know, Trey hits the synthesizer, and they take Haley's off for a nice little spin, and immediately they felt loose. They felt like they were kind of playful with each other. Fishman sounded great, like really great from the beginning, and immediately I was like, okay, this is a different band than we heard last night. First night in Sacramento, a night which, by the way, I enjoyed, in spite of the fact that it felt like they just threw a bunch of ideas against the wall and were like, what will stick? Maybe nothing, who knows? But I really enjoyed that show. But they just sounded tight, sounded rocking. Um, Transition to 46 Days, and this was kind of where the show really began for me, because I was like, okay, 46 Days in an arena is going to kick ass. But 46 Days is a song that has had some really significant versions over the summer, especially in the first quarter of a show. Um, it's just like, when 46 Days has been played this summer, I'm just going to pull up really quickly on .net, because I have an idea of where it's been played, but I'm blanking on it off the top of my head right now. Oh yeah, so it opened up Dick's. It was a pretty solid performance, but then it was in the first quarter of the Gorge, 828, Atlantic City, 814, and the third night of um, Deer Creek, and it was quite a good version that night as well. This was where the show really started for me in a lot of cases. This show felt like they could jam anywhere, and it felt like they were just taking a jam. I was with my close friend and Osiris Media's CEO, RJB, last night, and at one point he said, much later in the show, but he was like, "It feels like a 2003 show in the sense that it doesn't matter what song they're playing; the songs are just there to transition into a jam." And I got that same feeling. And 46 Days is where that began. You know, this goes into like this very blissful jam. At one point, it got really like rocking and kind of dark, and it was one of those moments where when you're in the venue, you feel like, are we halfway through the set? Are we to the end of the first set? Oh no, wait, this is the third song of the show. And it went into this blissful, just gorgeous jam. And I kind of figured at that point, you know, this band is going to, um, like, they're here to jam right now. And we're potentially in for like an 18 to 20-minute early first set jam. It just sounded so remarkable. And then it transitions and like immediately you know where it's going into, and it's going into Slave. And from without looking it up, this was the first set Slave since it opened September 3rd, 2016. I don't believe there's been a first set Slave since then. And then prior to that was June 15th, 2010, and June 16th, 2009 at the Fox, when I believe it closed the first set. It's a very rare song to hear in the first set, and even throughout its career, it was really rare. Like, there's a great Deer Creek version from 1996. There's a great version from, I believe, Niagara, New York, Niagara Falls. I think is that the town, or is that just the park? But the Niagara show that came out 12/7/95. But I was not expecting this, and I kind of texted two or three buddies just as this was happening, just like, oh my God, like, and someone sent me back, one of my good buddies, Josh Carver, setlist rules are off the map. There's no setlist rules anymore. And you think about the night prior where Hood and Coil are played so early in the first set, Sand is played in the encore, Tube is played late in the second set. It kind of seems like they're just saying, and we'll get to this, but like, does not matter where we play a song anymore. There's no like, this is a constructed set closer. We would get it at times, but like, overall, any song can be played at any point in time and be prepared for what we're going to do with it. I need to listen back to this Slave because, you know, I think the only, I don't know how to say this. Like, I'm just going to try to say it. The only downside to where Slave is typically played, which is the set two closer or the encore, is that by that point in the show, you know, it's almost over. And so it's usually like this moment of like, thank you, Fish. What an emotionally satisfying night this has been. Thank you for everything you do to us. And like, it's them like thanking the audience thanking them. And it's this like just kind of love fest towards the end of the show. It being played here, though, in the middle of the first set, kind of takes that emotion and transitions it to the early part of the show in a way that I don't want to say is more satisfying, but like, it changes the way that you hear and feel about that song. Um, I feel like the band, whereas sometimes they cap off a show with it in a way that like feels like we got to get to the peak, we got to get off so that we can play the encore. Here, like, and I need to listen back to this, so someone tell me if I'm totally wrong, or tell me if I'm right. But like, it felt like Trey took the peak two or three more times than he would have in a standard set two closing role, and that just added inside the venue an additional just like burst of energy and celebration that really impacted the remainder of the show and felt really apparent when they end it. Stage goes black and Trey does the boom. He like, you know, he goes down the neck of the guitar before starting the riff to Simple. It was like the 12/31/95 mics, you know, where it's just like the and it just like adds a little bit something extra to it. I don't know, it was awesome. um Simple was, in the way that it has been throughout this entire tour, this entire year, just an easy star for the band. It felt like everything that the band tried to do this this show worked. Every time they said, let's try to explore, let's get out there a little bit, let's see what has happening here, let's see where this idea takes us. It led somewhere amazing. And you know, I'm firmly in the camp. I don't think that they plan to do that. I don't think you really can plan to do that stuff. But I've got to imagine, like, on stage, you know, you think about the Haleys earlier in the show where it goes into a cool little 4-minute jam before going into a great 46 days, powerful Slave. You know, it almost, you know, puts them in a position where they just have the confidence to say, let's dive off the deep end and see what happens here. And so Simple, I felt picked up right where the Simple Catapult Simple from Dix was. It was groovy, it was snappy, and it just like it felt like, late 90s groove driven Fish, where like anything that they play falls into this like percussive rhythmic jam. Sounded like it could have been taken off of Remain in Light. At some one point I was like, man, this is like Steely Dan. Now it's like LCD Sound System. I loved it so much. And by this point we're 35, 40 minutes into the show, and I figured like we're probably going to have to take a breather here at some point. And so we fade into Shade. I thought this was a really well placed Shade, very earned to put a ballad here. Gorgeous, gorgeous version. I think the lyrics to Shade are some of the best that we've heard out of Tom in the last 20 years. They're really earnest, really sincere about just like marital challenges in a way that I absolutely love listening to. I thought it was a beautiful version. Winter Queen, I love this song. I was glad to hear it. It was the first time since Merriweather 2019. I think my only two gripes, I guess I would say, is just Trey did not play the riff to Winter Queen. It was kind of like quarterly strummed, which felt a little odd. It felt like they just decided to play it and hadn't really rehearsed it. But I also kind of felt like coming off of Shade, it noticeably like kind of lost a little bit momentum in the venue. I don't really fault him for that, because like Winter Queen, I was talking to RJ about it. Like this is like Trey playing Jerry, and this is like, let's all take a breather and let this amazing guitarist do his work. And I thought the jam that came off of Winter Queen was stunning and tied back into where the band had been exploring in Haley's 46 Days and Simple, where it was just like, let's put a little bit extra on here and see what happens. And it worked. And I thought at one point it was like a 15-second period where I was like, I think they're about to jam Winter Queen. And it felt like they just could. They brought it back, went into Meat, perfectly placed Meat. This song has been such a star throughout this summer and fall, perfectly placed where it's been played. It just adds like a bit of humor, takes you back to Story of the Ghost. It's just like such a great little song. And it really just allows the band to showcase kind of like their own individual skills that are just firing right now. And then Antelope closing it out really felt proper at that point in time. Would have I don't think like a Susie would have worked as much here, or like a Moore would have worked as much here. I thought this needed like a big song to close out. Could have been a cool opportunity for like a first jammed out Bowie, but we can't ask too much when we get a show like that. An Antelope that felt patient. It felt like the band was putting into it what they had put into the Slave. It works great. So end of the first set, I was like, man, I've seen 3 killer sets in a row now when you take into account Dick's night 3's set 1, set 2, and now this. And I was like, I don't know what to expect in the second set, but I feel like I've seen 3 really, really quality set lists here, or sets here. We strolled around the venue during set break. Really nice. Again, like wide, nice walkways, really easy to just like go and grab water without like waiting in line for 25 minutes. I mean, they've figured this out. There's restaurants, bathrooms, concessions, everything like wherever you need it. And it's all based on where you are sitting in the venue. So like you don't really need to walk around. We're kind of walking around to like see people and get some air. But just amazing layout. The investment into that venue has been worth it from a just like concert and I'm guessing basketball going experience. So we got back to our seats for set 2. They come out. Bathtub Gin has been a star of the second set this year. I'm just pulling up the stats on it because I think it's majority been played in the second set. Yeah, so if you go back to the start of the tour, it was played in the first set at Alpharetta, first set at the Gorge, first set at Dick's. But aside from that, you get a second set Nashville, second set Atlantic City, second set Chase. So I guess it's a little bit more evenly split than I thought. But like it's a song that they have definitely been figuring out ways to throw it into the second set, and it's been great every time it's there. This version was stunning. It just like picked up with where the band was at in the first set. It goes into this blissful space. It goes into like a more rocking space. I kind of figured like when they went through two or three modulations that just felt like they were in a completely new jamming space, and they just kept pushing it forward. I didn't wanna let expectations get in the way, but I was kinda like, this is a band that has played multiple 30 plus minute and one 40 plus minute jam this overall year so far. Like, if there's a show where they know the jamming's working to try it out again on an older song, why not right now? They feel like they're doing it. And I kind of feel like they would have just kept jamming had they not found this perfect segue into Everything's Right. That I'm not gonna ever complain about it at this point. That song is just working for the band. The last version I saw was at Dick's, and that was one of my favorite jams of the year. So these two songs, in like perfect combination, like it felt like the band was playing to their strengths. They're playing songs that they know are working right now in a show where they know that whatever they try is working, and they just go for it. And I absolutely loved it. Um, there's definitely more I could say about the gin and that everything's right, but like on the whole, they both felt like unique parts, but also united and unified with like the Haleys, the 46 Days, the Simple from set one. I felt like this was a show where rather than give us one massive jam, they just scattered jams across a ton of different areas. And that I don't want to say I enjoy it more. Like I love a long jam, and like the longest jam I think I've ever seen in person was the Coventry Split Open and Melt, which felt like it was a long time. It was like 31 minutes. Um, you know, I've got to imagine watching this band play a 40-minute jam. It's got to feel like a long time because there's so many different musical ideas happening. But there's something about like knowing as the show's going along, you're just going to get another jam here and another jam there. So, Gin, everything's right. Great, great opening to the overall set. This then segues into Frankie Says, which was my second Frankie Says ever. And the last one I saw was the last one that was played August 8th, 2015. Some great Ghost era songs. We get Meat, we get Frankie Says, we get MoMA, and we get Carini just like splattered throughout this show. Amazing stuff. This Frankie Says kind of blew me away. I heard the riff immediately, kind of threw my arms up, just was like going crazy. People around me were going crazy. It was just, it was one of those moments where like everyone knows like we're seeing a really, really rare song right now. And then people start realizing how long it's been since it's happened. Just amazing. And then right as it felt like they were about to close out the song, they find a jam, and the jam comes out of nowhere, and it just doesn't end, and it just goes from one section to another section to another section. And at one point, it sounds like I was just texting with a buddy, Josh Carver. It sounds like it goes into that segment of the Alfred Tweezer between like 21 minutes and 30 minutes, where like Trey just has a riff that he's just like building on and like playing off of and stop jamming. Unbelievable. Full complete jam. Definitely the best version of Frankie Says I think has ever been played. The only version that compares is 12/28/03. Great, great, great version, but nothing on this level. This was just like if this was played in any show and none of the other jams were played, you're talking about this tomorrow. And the detriment of a jam that would come later is that this Frankie Says is going to be overshadowed, but so much musical creativity. And I read somewhere in reference to 12/30/18 that when they played Light, and it's like a 20-minute version of Light, you just start hearing the band jamming on jamming. Where the second they go back into improv, they're kind of just picking up the conversation that they had two or three songs earlier, and that's what this felt like. It felt like they could do anything at this point in time, and getting a near 20-minute Frankie Says is not something anyone really expects going into a show. So I was thrilled with this. I thought it was placed perfectly. It was kind of served the ballad spot, if you will, but also then adds to it because it's a bust out. Plus, it's a huge jam. Wedge came next. Cool. Like if you're going to play a song like that, play it after those three songs in a row. And then Trey turns to Fishman. They kind of pause for a second. Kind of starts like strumming his guitar, and you hear like the funk strums, and they go into MoMA. and the place loses it. And it's like everyone has been listening to the Tab tour, and they know that MoMA has been one of those songs that has been so successful for the band. There's been great versions from earlier in the summer with Fish. So it was just like an explosion of energy. And at this point, you don't really know, like, is this going to be the final song of the set, or are we getting another jam? Like, what's going on here? It's starting about 50 minutes into the set. I thought this version was really cool. It went into almost like a Tweezer reprise jam. It was definitely, they've jammed MoMA a significant amount of times in the last couple of years, going back to the Baker's Dozen, and before that, SPAC 2016. So it's not like it's a rare thing when it's jammed, but it's definitely something that people celebrate. It's definitely something that people recognize when it happens. And hearing this version, it felt to me like this is about to become a standard jam vehicle that, like, when MoMA Dance is played, it kicks off the second set and it jams. And that feels like where the band is taking this song. And it felt like last night was kind of that version before the version. So I'm going to be really curious to hear how MoMA sounds. They ended it, and as they're ending it, Trey thanked the crowd, and I was like, "Are you kidding me? You guys are going to walk off stage 5 songs? Oh my god!" Puts his guitar down, place is going insane. Longer than usual encore. Coming out of a set like that, I felt like they deserved every breath that they could take out of it. They deserved a minute to, like, take some time off. Um, I sat down, just kind of was in awe, trying to, like, go through the set list in my head, remember what had happened, and just feeling that, like, it was one of those fluid sets. It reminded me of Nashville Night 2, Set 2, reminding me of Hershey Night 2, Set 2. But then it felt elevated in some cases because song selection, the types of jams, like, it just flowed from note one to the end. I will listen to this set in full over and over and over again. And they come out for the encore and they play Carini, which I'm going to look up here really quickly. I was trying to think of how many times it's been played as an encore. It's pretty rare. And it would look as though this was the first Carini encore since 11/29/2009. Wow, that's wild. Before that was 7/4/99, and then there was a few versions. Oh, there was 4/3/98 and 12/30/97. So this is the fifth time it's been played as an encore, and yet it's just not a song that's used as an encore at all right now. So, like, the place went insane. I didn't know what to expect. The Sand the night before in the encore slot felt, whoa, this is a weird, interesting move. This reminded me of that kind of almost out the gates. And I figured we'd get a 10, 12-minute rockin' version, and they walk off the stage, killer, Carini, send you off into the night. I did not expect what we got, and I still have not yet listened to it because I kind of feel like I need to, like, let it simmer and then re-listen. It's one of the best jams I've ever seen, and I had, like, kind of going back to what I was saying when I first started talking here, like, um, I kind of had just like a pretty emotional moment of, like, total gratitude for Fish. Like, I'm 36, I've got kids, I've got a wife who I met because we're both huge Fish fans. I spend my time, podcasting and talking about Fish, and I'm so lucky and blessed to be doing that. I've heard this band go through so many changes. My first Fish show was in early 2.0. I was at Coventry. I went through the thing that so many people went through of, like, um, '04 to '09. Is this band ever going to come back, or are they ever going to feel the same way again when they do? What's it going to be like? Oh my God, they're back. Just that is, a satisfying moment. But, like, you know, in 2009, 2010, 2011, even parts of 2012, it felt like um, it felt like we lost a lot of what had made Fish really special and really unique. And it was amazing. Don't get me wrong. I went to a lot of shows in early 3.0 where I loved it, but, like, it felt like something is missing. And I don't know if they'll ever recover it. That darkness, that risk taking, that edge that they had, where every time they walked on stage, it was like they were the greatest band on the planet, and they were going for that. It was gone, and it felt like there was a lot of nostalgia in a good way. And I think the joy from those years we needed, but, like, the idea of the band walking on stage and playing a 20-minute jam that's up there with the best jams they've ever played was not even like a realm of possibility. They weren't even going to do that to kick off the second set, let alone in the encore spot. And so like as they're peaking that jam and like the white lights and everybody around me is like arms up and just has a smile, like I just lost it for a second. And I was just like, I'm so thankful this band came in my life. I'm so thankful that like I just kept learning about them. I'm so thankful that like I've met so many friends I've made through them. I was in just like a lot of shock. I was texting friends on the East Coast who I knew was asleep, and I was just like, I cannot wait for you to hear this tomorrow. Like, I cannot wait for you to hear this. Um, it was it was the absolute best. It was one of the best jams I've ever seen. Um, I feel like Fish has in some cases overlooked the encore slot for the majority of their career and used it as kind of like, hey, let's just play two songs and see what happens, and we'll send everyone off for the night. It really felt like they used the encore slot in a way that could, who knows if we'll ever see this again, but like what a space of real estate in the overall show to add something else to fans, add something else to listeners. And so, um, musically, like, I'm no Mike Hamad. I'm not going to be able to tell you exactly where it went and what makes this significance because it shifted into this mode or because it went to this key. Like, for me, it was just a shocking moment where they jumped into Carini and then they went to a jam and I was like, okay, cool, we're getting a jam in the encore. And then the jam kept going and it kept getting better. And I was like, oh my God, like they're actually going for it in the encore. And then the peak of the jam was just like, it was heroic. It felt self-referential, but it also felt like this band that is, again, utilizing this space in a way that they never have before in just this very, very unique and cool way. It just felt very special. And being in the room, um, looking around at Fish fans, like knowing that I would have a chance to come on and talk about this the next day, like it just all kind of hit me in a moment. So, um, yeah, just amazing stuff. This band, dude, I love them. I love them so much. And I know anyone out there listening right now, people who are just listening to shows, like whatever, you all feel the same way. This band, like we just put out episode 6 of Undermine, and one of my favorite interviews of the season, Ashley Griffin, said something in the episode that just has always it struck my wife when she listened to it. It's always struck me, and it felt so right that like the band has such a way of making every one of us, you, me, all of us, feel like they played something for us on that night. And everyone goes through it. They walk up like, man, that it could be anything. Like that version of Waste was for me and my girlfriend. That version of Tweezer, that was for me. Like I've been wanting a tweezer in that spot like that. Everyone has their way of doing it. It's all ridiculous. Like we're all overthinking it, but like that's part of the point of all this is to overthink it and like just feel like this band means more than just being a rock band playing in a corporate stadium. And like hearing that Carini coming off of that show, like I had that feeling like, this was played for me, but this was played, for so many other people as well. And it's just special. So I flew home today. I'm home. I'm hearing calls right now for me to go eat some dinner and take care of my little kids. So I gotta go do that. I'm gonna watch the show tonight and enjoy it. And whatever happens, happens. I will be on tomorrow with a really awesome listener who's at the show tonight to talk about the show. So excited to dive into that as well as to hear his thoughts about the first 2 nights of the tour and kind of where he's at as a fan as well. And then I will be at Phoenix, Chula Vista, and LA, possibly Santa Barbara if things work out. We'll see. Fingers crossed there, but definitely Phoenix, Chula Vista, and LA. So if any of you are going, I would love to run into you, give you a hug, give you a high five, give you a fist bump, whatever you're comfortable with here during these crazy times of seeing Fish in the middle of a pandemic. But thanks everyone for hanging out. Eric, Jason, EC2B. I that's all I see on the screen, so I apologize. But thank you all so much for hanging out, and thanks all so much for your comments and your thoughts along the way. Amazing show last night, and I don't know what to expect going forward. But if it's anything like last night, this year that has been just amazing Fish, in spite of everything, and amazing Trey performances, it seems like it could only get better. So we'll see. That's part of the fun of this all. But everyone have a great Sunday. Enjoy the show this evening, and I will talk with you all later.